Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the criticism of astrology, and you will understand. I mean, there's a lot of people that will criticize astrology, not just criticize it, but incessantly criticize it, and it's often due to their superficial knowledge of the subject. Now, one person that comes to mind is the renowned Bill Nye, the science guy. He is a classic example of this. I've talked about him in previous videos. I'm going to talk about him again. Now, he did a video one time that lasted maybe perhaps about a whole minute that was supposed to debunk astrology. And at the end, he asked if he was like a sexy Scorpio or Sagittarius or something. Well, he's not factoring in with the precession and in the fact there is a difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology, that those are two very, perhaps the two main forms of astrology. And the thing about it is some people just don't want to explore the subject further because I think they're afraid that their theory might be rebuked, or I should say debunked. And one time it was funny too, and talk about more criticism with this. And someone told me one time, he didn't see me as a true believer in God because of the fact that I fostered a belief in astrology. Well, first of all, you have the three wise men that were very likely astrologers, I believe. I think it's very plausible to think that they may have been astrologers. And there may be a statement in the Bible that does rebuke astrology. My philosophy incorporates God and astrology, but people have to remember that the Bible also has a number of contradictions in it. I think God actually did put the constellations and planets for a reason. And what's funny is you'll find these people that will often persecute others for their belief in astrology, and they are committing sins. And what they could do, some of these same people that condemn others for fostering a belief in astrology and saying it's a tool of the devil or there's something demonic or nefarious about it, they're committing their own sin. They might be involved in premarital sex. They might be very promiscuous, curse like a sailor, lie compulsively, and judge others unnecessarily. And I mean, they could be breaking commandments left and right. Now, scientists will often debunk astrology because they feel, well, a lot of these planets are at such a far distance from the Earth that it would be really preposterous for them to actually have an impact on human life. Well, the thing about it is, I mean, just because if you don't have the scientific equipment perhaps to detect certain energy or vibrations or what have you that could perhaps be coming from these planets, it doesn't mean that the energy is not there. And there might be certain things that could actually be happening that science doesn't explain, and something that we just can't see doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, we have not actually seen, I don't know if anybody's actually seen the literal presence of God. I doubt there is any, but a lot of us still believe in it. It's faith in what we do not see. I believe there is a God. I do believe there is a supreme being. I mean, because I feel that we had to have come from something. We originated from something. So it's kind of like, I mean, I could use some examples. So if somebody becomes mysteriously ill, they have some enigmatic illness, and they don't know what caused it, but you know something did it. I mean, it could be an invisible gas or what have you, or I mean, if you have, or it could be some food poisoning. It might not be something that was, I mean, it might be detected at some point, but if you don't initially detect it, it didn't mean at that time, I mean, that something didn't exist or something didn't cause that to happen. Let's say your computer crashes or becomes corrupted, and you don't know what actually caused it. You know there was some malicious virus that got in there maybe and got it. Or let's say that something happened where you had your computer or credit card or even an old VHS tape, had information on it, had whatever on it, and it got mysteriously, the information became erased on it. You may not have seen what had happened. You may not have actually witnessed what happened, but you understand that something did something to cause that information to go away and be eradicated. I mean, whether it was a magnet or some magnetic energy or whatever it may have been, something surreptitiously may have erased it, and you didn't really actually see it or know about it, but you know what it actually was. You didn't have the 100% proof, irrefutable evidence, but you know something did it. I think what it is sometimes is that scientists may simply be intimidated by a power they cannot comprehend and an energy they can't detect. So what they do is they just blow it off based on their superficial knowledge of the subject and say, well, this doesn't exist. That's preposterous. There's no way that this can happen. Well, the thing about it is planets and constellations can still have a very strong impact on people, events, human behavior, or what have you. As I stated before, just because the equipment might not be there to detect this energy, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's plenty, of evidence that astrology does exist, even if you're just looking at certain transits. You look at what happened when you had that second, I believe that second bomb was dropped in World War II. I think it was Hiroshima in 1945. The Black Moon Lilith was transitioning from Libra into Scorpio. And I think what this signified to me was this is a time for reconciliation and peace coming to an end, and something destructive and nuclear would be initiated. Now, Pluto does rule Scorpio and is associated with things that are nuclear, and Scorpio energy can be destructive. Now, and that's when the nuclear weapon was unleashed. Another example. On August 29th, 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, Louisiana, transit Uranus was, best of my knowledge, it was exactly, if not close to exactly, conjunct the New Orleans natal Pluto in Pisces. Now, this transit being in Pisces, and in this transit of Uranus conjuncting that natal Pluto of New Orleans, that could indicate unpredictable destructive energy that could be connected with flooding. Imagine that, having something that exactitude, that precise conjunction like that, or very close to it. To me, that's just too coincidental, I believe. And the thing about it is, you have also too, you have people, what bothers me too, and it's not just about the video, is strongly about criticism of astrology, but you have in the astrological community, there may be someone or some people every now and then you'll be criticizing someone else in astrology for something connected with what their belief is in astrology, and something that they think about on a specific issue or subject connected with astrology. For example, I was watching someone, I heard something one day on some video, and somebody, I don't think I'm going to say the word on here, but I don't think it's a curse word, but I see it as everything but an expletive, and I think I'm going to refrain from it. And the person said, well, anybody that tries to predict death using astrology is such and such, and the word began with a D and ended with a G, and I let you people at home figure out maybe what that word was. And I understand it was likely, the general statement. Now, the thing about it is, now with me, I don't like, if I had a client or something, I'm not going to tell that client, well, I think you're going to die because of this transit, even if I do see it. I'm likely not going to say anything. I understand there's some moral and ethics codes in astrology. I get all that. But I did a video one time regarding predicting death in astrology, and it wasn't designed for people to say, if there's other astrologers out there, to go to their client and use that information to in the event if they see something in a client's chart that gives some indication of when they may die. It wasn't designed for those people to do that, to talk to clients about the possibility of when they may die. But what it was designed for, it was just to give people an general idea and conception of certain indicators when death could take place by using astrology, whether it be natal or transits or what have you. Now, and the thing about it is too, and when I look at this, and you know, I mean, there's certain ways. I mean, you could disagree with something somebody says, but there's ways of disagreeing without being disputatious. And people being critical of each other in the astrology community, I just don't see that as being cool. That's just my own. I mean, in terms of making derogatory, disparaging remarks, you could say certain things in a certain manner, and if there's something about a specific astrologer you may not like, or you have a problem, or you're rebuffed by what he or she may be saying, then you know what, by all means, write them. I understand. I have my comments are blocked on my channel, but somebody could always write me on Facebook. There's other ways to do it. I believe I know YouTube, I think, has taken away messages. The messaging part of YouTube is gone. So you can get me on Twitter or get me on Facebook. Anyway, and another thing, I mean, it'd be like one thing, I mean, for me, like, let's say, I mean, let's say I watch an astrologer's live video, right? And I include that same astrologer in my top 10 YouTube astrologer video, and I even subscribe to the person. And let's say that same person that I did all three things for never said thank you or anything, or showed any appreciation. I mean, I'm not going to call the person a name because of that, because I don't feel that would be professional on my part. I wouldn't say I'd be that despondent. I'd be a little disheartened, a little bit disappointed by the person for not doing that. I would think maybe the person could have at least contacted me and gave me a thank you, because I don't think that's that's not exactly an arduous task, but that's just my opinion on that. Now, another person, one time, you talk about criticism in astrology, somebody else had some criticism for me. One time I had made a Chiron, I tweeted something on Twitter, and it was one of my Chiron transiting the houses videos. And then he tweeted me, and he said, "Who cares?" And I think this is somebody that may be fairly prominent in at least in social media astrology. I don't know if he's actually does YouTube astrology or what have you, but I had some Facebook friends that had him on his friends list, so I feel he's probably fairly prominent, at least in the astrological community. Now, the thing about that is, now, you could say who cares on something like that and blow Chiron off as insignificant. I understand there's a lot of people that do that. I saw someone's post, I think it was on Facebook one time, it was another person, and this person wrote something about that Chiron was basically insignificant. I think it was presumably she was referring, or he was referring to it in transit, but if that person was thinking it was unimportant in transit, I'm sure the person probably thought it was insignificant in natally or in any other way, shape, or form. Well, again, we're all entitled to our opinion, but instead of saying something like, "Who cares?" why can't maybe you say, "Well, Edwin, hey, I don't agree with it," and constructively say, "I don't really think Chiron is that significant in terms of any impact it might have on a person. So whether it's in transit or natally, and it has little astrological significance or whatever," that would have been okay. I would have understood that. But the thing about it is, like, for example, many of you I don't know how many of you follow actors and actresses. Well, Heather Locklear, some time ago, she had, there was a time when she had been, I think, contemplating suicide. I believe she was thinking about shooting herself. And at that time when that happened and she had gone into a hospital, transit Chiron was almost, if I remember correctly, transit Chiron in Aries was almost exactly conjunct her ascendant. And I mean, Chiron, of course, is about wounds. It could be about physical wounds. And being in Aries, I mean, it's hitting her ascendant, the physical body. And I mean, Aries is like the head, the face, and you're talking about being ruled by Mars, which of course is gunfire. So it all adds up right there. I've seen Chiron in action in other ways, and I do believe. I mean, I talked about it relative to Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, and also the assassination. I believe it was one of the Kennedys had gotten assassinated in 1968, and I had talked about the Chiron and Aries transit and how that might have impacted his assassination as well. So those are, I mean, those are some things. I mean, Chiron, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I guess what I'm getting at as far as that goes, that person could say, who cares? But you know what? Maybe other people do care, and it's about respecting other people's opinions on matters. And I think I don't know if Heather Locklear follows astrology at all, but I think if she had known about this, that transit, I think maybe she would have cared. So anyway. Well, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment on the criticism of astrology. And stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be talking about the 2018-2019 Black Moon Lilith in Aquarius transit. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.